Where do we start? What do we do?
One of the first things that I do is, and this may sound morbid, but
Where does this feeling seem to kind of come from?
getting a little Freudian on me, eh?
So tell me about all your problems. Today we want to chat about never feeling like we're doing enough or like we are never enough and get into the various tools that we use to navigate through these feelings. I'm Saoirse, and this is Argentarius.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me. What are we drinking today?
So today we are drinking jasmine and tulsi and ginger and sage.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. Smells delicious too.
I love jasmine.
Yes, me too.
Figured we'd have a little chat over tea to talk about how this feeling is for us. Why did we want to talk about that today, essentially?
Yeah, it's actually honestly been coming up in conversations with our friends lately, and honestly, we've been feeling it too, right?
Yeah.
At least in recent context for us, it's been, are we doing enough for the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. Are we doing enough for our friends?
Are we doing enough for our friends?
Are we doing enough for our community?
Right.
The various communities. Are you doing enough at work? Am I doing enough in school?
A lot of it, what I mean for like the YouTube channel is like, okay, we're doing couch commentary, right?
Yeah.
And we're recording that, and at the same time there's a lot going on in the world, and it's like, should I be using my voice for something better or something, more meaningful?
But we are also talking about things that are meaningful to us in those.
True, right?
Yeah.
But the brain wants to always do more, essentially. There is no end to it.
And we've noticed that, like, also same with like our friends and people around us that are having this issue, they are doing a lot too.
Right.
Like, objectively, there's a lot that they're doing and a lot that's going on, but they still feel that they're not doing enough.
That they should be better.
Yeah.
And I see their situation as like, yeah, sometimes it's just not your fault. Sometimes you don't need to be better.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this feeling.
And it's easy for me to look at them and say, like, hey, you're doing enough already.
Yeah.
It's easier to go from the outside perspective and tell them like, oh yeah, you're doing quite a lot.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Kiki.
Sorry, we have our wonderful fur child who's not allowed on the table, but would really like to be.
Yes. She wants attention.
So, I mean, I know that we said that we've been noticing it more, but like, where does, for you or for us, where does this feeling seem to kind of come from? Or, when did we first notice it before now? Because this isn't the first time.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
a bit of a loaded question. Yeah.
Getting a little Freudian on me, eh?
So tell me about all your problems.
All right. So for me, right, I've known about this for a long time. I am very self-driven. I have a lot of I'm very self-critical, very harsh on myself, and I have a very, very hard drive to do the best that I can. This goes for school, and it continued into work and my career. Everyone who's ever given me feedback on stuff has been like, oh, Argent has done a whole ton of work. I wish I had, more of them in my classroom or in my, in the office. Where it comes from is, frankly, having a father that I could never please. I was never good enough. I was never doing enough. I was never enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of it became internalized, and I noticed okay, since I moved out of the house, out of the family, I have not, I don't have my father being that voice there, but that's internalized.
Yeah,
now,
but
right?
you still have that voice. It's just not now actually physical.
Right. And that one is way harder to break free from because it's not my father's voice anymore. It's my own. Right?
Yeah, you've made it your own.
Right.
Yeah, it's become your own inner critic.
Right.
That's essentially where, mine came from. A lot of drive, a lot of getting into in the US, the gifted and talented section. And then because I wasn't, getting enough supports and stuff, and then I'm not living up to my potential.
Right.
oh, I have so much potential.
Yeah.
Why am I not doing more? And so I was getting a lot of that feedback from school, and then also at like various times in my life, like my parents, from like dealing with the divorce and stuff. I was also the youngest, and I also had to grow up real fast because one of my parents like, just really leaned heavily on me.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, I have to not only figure out stuff for myself, but I also have to parent my parent.
Yeah.
So,
I get that.
yeah,
And to be honest, I feel like I know where it comes from in my parents too, right?
yeah,
It's a generational thing. Like
yeah,
I'm personally half Chinese. I come from a family of immigrants,
yeah,
and being an immigrant selects for people who are high achievers. To be
yeah,
quite frank, we're also immigrants.
yeah. We're now also
We're
immigrants.
we're now also immigrants.
So now it's another new pressure of like, oh, we need to prove that we can be here.
Right. We need to prove that we belong
Yeah,
here as well. The things that brought my family to the US
yeah.
are the same things that also drove them to like, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Don't waste your opportunities.
Don't waste your opportunities. You got to get ahead. You've got to work hard to pull ahead. You're no different from anyone else, except if you work harder than other people, you will get ahead.
Yeah,
And you have a very similar
yeah. I also come from military.
military, yeah.
You do what you're told, do it now. So very regimented as well, but in a different way.
Right, right.
Not a lot of explanations of like why. It's just do.
Yeah. When we're out of the house, when we're like go to college or move out,
Yeah,
whenever that happens, I know that happens at different points in people's lives
Yeah.
for everyone's, and the voices aren't there to tell you, then it's often just internalized and it's often your own voice
or you still have or you have managers that have now taken
over that.
to some degree sometimes.
Well, no, here's the interesting thing, because I've been a manager, right?
Yeah.
And that internalization, like my expectations for some people,
Mm-hmm.
I feel have kind of I try not to do that, but like
Yeah.
it's kind of leaks into that as well, and
Yeah.
I try not to do that.
We've realized that it doesn't matter, like for both of us, doesn't matter where we're at in our career
It never
or
goes
life
away, does
stage,
it?
it doesn't go away. Same with
Mhm.
our friends and stuff. They're at various life stages, ages, locations, careers,
Yeah,
all sorts of stuff. So it doesn't matter. It's there.
there was at one point where I was like, okay, I'm working a full-time job, I'm running a LARP, I'm doing lots of things for my community,
Yeah.
et cetera, and I'm like, why do I feel like I'm not doing enough still?
Maybe if I just stop sleeping, which is generally what we would,
Oh
in the
yeah,
past we would do is, you would sacrifice your sleep or eating or both or,
sacrifice my health.
yeah, essentially
My health
sacrifice our
took a lot of,
health
yeah.
to do a bunch.
Our health
So,
has taken a hit too many times.
and so that's where I think it has kind of changed over time for us. It's a little different when we were kids, when young adults, and then before we got together, and now after, because it has been something that we've, worked together on as well.
Right. So our relationship with it has changed as
Yeah.
we've identified it and
Yeah.
started working with it instead of against it,
Yeah, pretty much, rather than just,
giving into it.
yeah, giving into it or trying to
Mhm.
ignore it and hoping it goes away. That's kind of like we've found various things that help us kind of navigate when this, feeling starts becoming more prominent. Because I don't think it never really fully goes away,
Right.
but there are times where it's essentially louder, where it's more pressing,
Where it's more prominent.
yeah, where
Yeah.
it's a lot more prominent. And so
Hmm.
what do we need to, what are some of the ways that, okay, what's going on? How can we get ahead and not, have it feel so powerful and so consuming,
Right.
essentially?
And I think there's maybe multiple aspects of this, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the feeling of it,
Mm-hmm.
like you feel obligated and you feel like you're not enough and you feel a lot of guilt and shame,
Yeah.
essentially internalized guilt and shame. Then there's like the practicality of it, right?
Yeah.
What is the reality? Am I doing enough, or am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to waste or feel like they're wasting their lives, right?
Yeah. No one wants to feel like they're, just they're going to, regret this later, essentially.
Everyone wants to work on something that they feel fulfilling with. If you do something that you enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life, which is a bit of a fallacy,
Yeah.
by the way.
It's still work, even if you enjoy it.
Right. It can be fulfilling work, but it's still work. And you can work hard at it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's why there's kind of various ways to go about it, kind of depending on
Yeah, I think some of our techniques attack it from different angles.
and help us figure out, well, essentially, where do we start? What do we do? Like, what's something that like gets you going in that direction?
So when I start feeling it, right? When I start feeling that, okay, this is starting to kind of take the steering wheel of my life and it's starting to kind of creep in a bit more.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I do is, and this may sound morbid, but I think and imagine myself in my deathbed going, okay, if I was in my deathbed and this thing that I'm thinking of that I feel like I need to do, would I regret not doing it on my deathbed?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like a really great filter of like, okay, yeah, maybe it's not that important to do.
Yeah, at least not right this second.
Yeah, because when I look at like social media and stuff and I see all these people doing great things, right? It's like, I need to be doing more with my time, more stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if I was on my deathbed and I didn't do that, would I regret that?
Yeah, would that end up, making me feel worse or better?
Right.
And yeah, I know mine has generally been a lot more of getting kind of outside perspective and feedback, like we talked about, of like where it's easier for us to see it with our friends.
Right. I mean, I
So,
include that too, but
yeah. Oh yeah, I know. That's just like another way of like how we go about it is, I'll try and start from a like, would I tell my friend do better? You're not doing enough or you're not enough. Like if they were doing it, I would try and take an outside perspective myself if possible, but then also follow it up because it's hard and it's a skill and sometimes it doesn't work because it can be like, yeah, I'm lying to myself or whatever.
Right.
So that's why, we go to each other.
Right.
And it's just like, hey, can I be doing more? Or even sometimes, like, help me keep track of this. That's one of the things that, because, we're ADHD and stuff, it's so easy for us to have a conversation and then just whoop.
Yeah. Have like someone who's outside help you bring a little bit of accountability into it.
Yeah. Or just like have it written down so I don't have to keep coming back all the time.
Yeah, that is honestly one of the things that we also do is we'll write it down in our journals, or you don't even have to have a physical one.
Yeah, on our phone somewhere, just somewhere where we can find it and get to it again.
What I like to do is write down all the things I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
And that helps me see, like, it helps to have it on paper or in front of me on like a screen or something if I'm writing it down on the computer.
Yeah.
But it helps to physically see, like, oh, I'm actually doing a lot.
Yeah,
like,
here's
it's
all
really,
the things.
Yeah, it's really hard for your brain to deny the fact that you just made a long list.
Yeah, of like, no, here's the receipts, essentially. It's a lot easier to write a list in your head, but then it doesn't feel very real. Yeah, or kind of dismiss it.
Yeah, if it's all in your head, it doesn't feel real. Kind of going back to your point about accountability, it is helpful when you tell me, like, go write a list.
Yeah.
Because I'll do it on my own, but sometimes it takes a little bit of motivation sometimes, and I'll go, I don't wanna, but then I'll still do it.
Yeah. But it's just like, and sometimes it is also easier of like, rather than it being more of a demand, it can be like, all right, so to help me understand this, can you help me make a list of what you're doing?
Frame it in a question.
Yeah, frame it in a question versus like, rather than go do your homework. Essentially, of not having it become that sort of.
Go see your therapist. What? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be a little.
So like, all right, because I mean, it's helpful for me. I know it's helpful for you, but it is a lot harder.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have to also hold it all in my head while I try and help you.
Right.
Sort through stuff. Because it helps me have it also tangible.
And sometimes what it does is it takes the form of like, I'll chat with you and be like, hey, do you mind if I brain dump?
Yeah,
and
like,
then
are
you're
you
like,
in a spot where I can? I'm like, yeah, sure, give me a sec.
and I'll just verbally tell you what's going on in my head, and then
Yeah.
you'll kind of make a judgment of like, yeah, time to write a list. So that can be helpful. Help your friends.
Yeah, do it for each other.
Hmm.
Find somebody, your friend, family, community. Heck, even if you have a therapist, this might be able to help you figure that out, potentially. We also use things to, pause or break the cycles. So when we
Yeah,
get stuck in going in circles or writing stuff down or really ruminating on stuff
yeah.
and trying to make decisions, we use
Because
various things to help us, break out of that rather than just staying stuck in it.
right.
So like journaling, or we get up and like go for a walk, or if we can, depending on things,
I wrote a poem.
we'll sit there and go through, find different, tactile things that help us like concentrate or give our like body something to do with that energy.
Right. A lot of it comes from restlessness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do have a lot of like, all right, we need to go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to. Maybe we just need to sit and like, play with like a fidget, or we get up and like just throw on some music and kind of just,
Mm-hmm.
bop and dance around. Or if because that's too keyed up and it's not releasing our energy, we'll do, like meditation or moving meditations,
Yeah.
something. We go through it and see what's helping us because it changes.
Yeah, yeah.
What helps us one day doesn't always
I
work.
think, sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't always work the next day,
No, no.
unfortunately.
I mentioned this in one of our other videos, one of our couch commentary videos, but I
Hmm.
feel like because we both have ADHD, what works for us changes
Yeah,
on us. But that's why it's nice to have, a bag of tools that you can use
yeah,
and you can switch it out. Okay, maybe this situation calls for this. Maybe writing it down is the best in this situation. Maybe talking to a friend or colleague
yeah,
with whatever you're willing to share.
yeah. And I think something else that's kind of worked is taking breaks away from social media. I know that we're on it,
Yeah.
but not sitting there and scrolling all the time.
Right.
We have like we'll check in with each other, or we'll set timers on our phones, or parental controls
Those, yeah.
to help kind of pop up and break, be like, hey, you've been doing this.
Yeah, yeah. So you set yourself like a time limit on your social media or try and do it intentionally.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I want to look up this thing.
Yeah,
I want to learn more about this. Using it more than that versus letting the endless scroll
right.
keep going.
Yeah, so if you're intentionally like searching for that stuff and finding it, yeah, I don't count that as like
Yeah.
scrolling.
We've noticed it's really helped a lot with like, kind of two things really, like peer pressure and, FOMO, fear of missing out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're exposed to social media and you get like a lot of the people are doing great things and or you see that there are a lot of like causes or people are in need, you get really overexposed and overstimulated.
Yeah. And oversaturated.
Oversaturated,
Just
yeah.
over everything.
Do I need to turn up the saturation on this section of the video? Just way up.
We'll see. But yeah, it's one of those, because there is so much need. So, and it's not saying don't ever, but
Right.
there's always going to be problems to solve. That's nothing new. That's been how it is since we were kids,
Right.
and that's how it is now. There will always be problems to solve. And, the long and short of it, but there's a limit to what you can do, to what we can do, to what a person can do.
Yeah. And I think faced with, all the possibilities
Hmm.
and the overwhelm, it's often, it's a very human thing. It's part of the human experience to have like an existential crisis about like, am I doing the right thing with my life?
Yeah.
Am I doing enough? Should I be doing something else?
Yeah, is this the right choice? Or is that the right choice?
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't make you a failure to
No.
have these existential crises or to have your limits.
Hmm.
That just makes you human.
Oh, and the other thing too is like if you're trying to take a break from this,
Hmm.
you're often, like we were talking about peer pressure and shame, like you feel guilt
Yeah.
for taking that break,
Yeah.
oftentimes, because it's like, well, I'm out here taking a break while other people are having, miserable lives that I could be helping potentially, I don't know, hypothetically.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's maybe technically true, but like at the same time, you also need that break in order to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. And or even what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same with like learning, in therapy, the whole like the saying of like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
If you sit there and keep going and going and
Right.
don't pause or break or take care of yourself, then you can't be there for somebody else later.
And actually, self-care, originally the term was used as a radical way of protest.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself so that you have more energy to spend on your communities and the people around you.
Yeah. It gives you a moment to pause and reflect.
Yeah.
Rather than, because if you just keep going, there's no reflection, there's no learning, there's just doing.
Right.
And sometimes that leads to worse outcomes than just taking a second, taking a step back, taking a breath, and knowing what your limits are.
Mm-hmm.
Because the systems don't want you to.
Very true.
It's a lot, and it's still very radical today to, realize and believe that you are enough.
You are enough. That brings me to my poem that I wrote. I wrote this kind of in lieu of all the sort of feedback and what's kind of been going on with us and our friends. So my poem is for you, anyone who does not feel enough. You are enough. Maybe you are being harassed. Maybe you're being evicted. You may not find a job or one that pays well, or maybe you feel privileged to not have to worry about all these things, and you feel you need to be better, like you are not enough. However, I assure you that you are enough. It is not your fault that people don't see you for your true value. It is not your fault that the systems are aimed to extinguish you. I promise you that you are enough.
I'm not going to clap super loud because that'd be super loud in people's ears.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we just wanted to share that and, share kind of what that feeling's like for us.
Yeah.
What are some ways we try and work with it?
Yeah, I don't think we've covered all our tools, just the ones that we can think of.
Let us know, like, how do you work through and navigate, like, these feelings of never doing enough or not being enough, how they kind of intermingle.
Yeah, let us know what tools you use.
So for, if you have any questions or you want to hear more about other ways that we work or you want some, more discussion on any of the points that we made, just let us know and we'll try to answer your questions.
Yeah, we'll answer to the best of our ability. Check out this sneak peek from our extended cut.
Tell me, where does this feeling come from?
Okay, Freud. You can find more on Patreon.
So thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we get to see you in the next one.
Bye.